Hey guys, welcome to episode 21 of Biomassed. Appreciate you guys listening to us on the live stream that we just now got up about 25 minutes late, but that's cool. It happens sometimes. Or if you're listening to us out on iTunes, wanted to really appreciate some of the feedback we've gotten this week. We've got a couple of questions from the player audience at large that we'll tee up tonight. But we've got a pretty compact show for you tonight. We all of us had a really busy week, and we just really wanted to make sure that we got a good show in for you. It might be a little shorter than usual, but we wanted to get a good show in for you this week. So we've got Killer, and Killer 12 is our guest tonight, and we've got myself, Pokey, and Soraya. And we're going to start out with intros, and we're going to run right into a little bit of a CPM1 update from Soraya Zell. After that, we've got a few basic questions. Or a few basic topics, rather, excuse me. We'll talk a little bit about the million clone challenge, which is ongoing as we speak. After that, we've got a little bit of a discussion about the fit of the week, which was a Pokey Draven special from last week that was co-opted by Bam Havoc, now wrenched from his greasy bacon-filled hands back by Pokey Draven, and he'll be taking the lead on that one. And then we'll have a couple different minor topics that are working their way around the Dust and Eve community. So with that, we'll start with some intros. Killer, why don't you tell everybody who you are, brother?
Wait, what?
Okay,
Sorry.
so the one time that you don't talk is when we're doing the intro. Okay. All right, you mind doing an intro so everybody knows who you are, brother?
Sorry about that. Just having a little bit of technical trouble. I'm Killer 12. Don't really have anything that I have. Used to be CEO of Corporate Raiders, operated the Thunderdome. Don't really have much else to say.
Well, that's good enough for government work, or at least around here. Pokey?
I'm Pokey Draven, CEO of OSG Planetary Operations and co-host here on Biomassed.
Awesome. And Soraya Zell.
I'm Soraya Zell, CPM1 member and leader of the Top Men Alliance.
For the record, Pokey and I have arranged this so that anything that comes out of Killer's mouth, Soraya is 100% totally responsible for, since he's the Alliance leader for Top Men. So we just wanted to make sure that was on public record.
Don't sue us, please.
Yeah. Notice when Pokey said us, he meant me and him. Just saying.
Yeah, Zell is free game. I mean, go for him. That's fine. He's CPM. He's got connections and stuff.
That's right. And he did say he was the leader, which implies responsibility for all the members of his organization. So, hey, Soraya, what do you have going on in the CPM world this week?
It's been pretty quiet. We had one meeting this week with CCP Rotati. It was pretty productive. And that's really all there is.
Okay, cool. I'm just curious, but are there any specific areas of feedback or stuff like that that the CPM is trying to ferret out of the community right now on the heft or behest of CCP, or any of your own, sort of individual interest?
I like
we can help you
anything
out
and
with?
everything. Anything and everything. I'll take it.
Okay. Good deal. Let's see. So I think the first thing we'll talk about is the Million Clone Challenge. And I want to say that as of less than 10 minutes ago, according to the tweet by CCP Frame, we're at 2,160 some odd thousand clones already killed. So you've hit the Million Clone Challenge. I think you've hit stretch goal 1. And you're continuing to drive on. And I think, and like I said, my memory is probably totally shot on this, but I think we're at least on par, if not a little bit ahead of the pace from the first New Clone Challenge.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, there's obviously been some concern about player activity and whatnot, but it's good to see that people can still get out there and participate in this and perform just as well, if not better, than we did last time. So I think that's pretty cool.
How about you, Zell? What do you think, bro?
Yeah, I mean, for me, being on par with where we were or better, hopefully, just proves to me what we've been saying, which is that player activity is in fact up, not down.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a pretty legit way to look at it. And like a lot of people talk about this. It's kind of the whole what's going on with the community of Dust. Well, I think the simple fact that a lot of people just got to come to grips with is that the community on Dust is a very different community than it was 6 months ago. A lot of the vets that were around from closed beta or around the time that the game launched, rather, they're just they're frankly not here. For a variety of reasons, which we've talked about, in a lot of different forums. It just kind of is what it is, but that doesn't mean that there's not folks playing, and it doesn't mean that there's not a fair amount of folks playing. And I think the results from the Million Clone Challenge are I'm not going to say that's proof positive, but it probably goes a long idea when, at least a long ideas, a long way towards giving some credence to that idea.
Yeah, like I said, if anything, it's encouraging to see that people can actually still log in and play despite issues and recent releases of other games. It's good to see that we still have a pretty strong community and that they're willing to get out there and earn some SP, which I think will also kind of help. People get 3 million SP in their pocket without a ton of effort. They're probably a little more encouraged to go try out some new things, maybe reinvigorate some of their interest in the game and whatnot. It takes away from a bit of the grind, so I think that's good.
Yeah, Iron Wolf actually said something I thought that I was thinking about earlier today. On the show last week about where there's kind of a break-even point for any given role or suit in the game. Where if once you hit somewhere in between the 15 and 20 million range in terms of SP, and it's kind of floats between suits, but that you're kind of maxed out in that role / racial variety, and it's really time to move on to something parallel. And I think once you hit anything above the 20 million SP point, when you get more SP, it's not about the fact you're getting more SP and that you're going to have that many more advantages over people. I think that helps keep people interested because they get a chunk of sort of free or bonus SP that they can quickly invest into another role and start enjoying that rather than sort of petering off their activity just because they don't want to grind again. And that was one of the things I was thinking about in terms of the veteran community, and then for the new player community. I don't like. I'm trying to remember when I had like 7 or 8 million SP. Like if somebody just magicked me up 3 million SP when I was at that point, that would have been just an absolutely huge game changer for me.
Yeah, I think it works on both ends, like you said. For a newer player, that 3 million is huge. I mean, that's going to get you a proto suit and some good support skills. And for the vets, it offers some additional variety they can play around with without having to deal with the usual grind. So I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it came at a good time. So props to the event team for that one.
Yeah. Now, and the interesting thing is, I thought the requirements for it weren't all that bad. And I mean, was it 10 matches and you can blast
matches.
through that? Yeah, you can blast through that pretty quick.
Ambush, easy to just go through it, and ambush is actually pretty solid gameplay right now too. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. That was something I was going to specifically hit up with you on, Soraya. So now, I guess my question is, where do you think we go from here in terms of community events?
Well, I think the next thing hopefully is something pertaining to the sidearms. I think I would like to see them do what they did with the light weapons and stuff for
like naming rights.
That'd be fun. I think they had mentioned before the idea of doing it. When people were asking about sidearms. So that I'm sure they'll put in just a straight up bonus SP weekend at some point again, since they do that every so often. I'm not sure. Is there anything new you'd like to see? That's the sort of thing too. That's really great feedback because obviously everybody loved the good old Caldari Prime event, but that's a huge time investment to build something like that. But there may be, if anybody has any ideas for other small events that could be done with what we have, we can definitely pass those along.
Honestly, I would really like. I mean, I think you've heard me and Cross and SMB talk about it before, but I would really like something that was not related to KDR. Something that can benefit different roles and classes. I'm not sure how to do it. I mean, you can always get into I don't know,
4 points.
yeah,
Win
war points
loss.
healed, or like damage healed, stuff like that, or something like that. But I actually remember the old Mordu event where you had it was like installations hacked and installations hacked, destroyed, and all this kind of stuff. I would actually like an event more like that. That was
That
not
one
just
was
about
kind of
pulling
fun.
the trigger.
That was kind of crazy though. Actually, the actual burn through to get to complete that one
Yeah, that was legit. That was hard.
that was a really harsh one. That's the one thing that I would say there is that I'd be concerned about is that was a burnout week. I got done with that event and I just like okay, screw it, I'm done for a
Well,
while.
well, I think
That was a tough one.
I would say that I think I think they really need to stay away from grind events. I don't think that the game's in a place right now where that's a good idea. I think things that are kind of sharp and pithy. I like the weekend thing. That actually is a good idea. Or something that stretches. You either do it one of two ways. You either make it very short and sharp, like over a weekend, or you stretch it out like over a month. Something big and meaty, but you give them a month to do it.
Or something even where it's more based off of a single game, where you have like your average war point per game over the course of like a week or something. So
Yeah, I mean, something like that would be pretty cool. But like I said, I think something less shooty, would be maybe the way to go.
Okay.
You can have a number of objectives
Logi
hacked
event,
and see how
Mr. Logi.
Yeah, there's no bias there at all.
Well, come
Come on, Officer Reptools. Come on.
I detect just a wee bit of bias.
Okay, all right, come on now. No, but in all honesty, that I think it would be pretty cool that you could wrap a lot of different categories, kind of like that Mordu event. That was one of the early events outside of Caldari Prime that really stood in my mind because you had this. I want to say it was like 6 or 7 different tasks in there that you had to work through, or you could work through.
I think it was 4.
Well, no, because it was hacking.
It was 5 of them.
It was hacking installations. It was a lot of little things like that. I can't remember what it was, but like I said, I don't know what their limit or what they can do in terms of data pull to that you can base events around. I mean, I know like killing and counting kills and stuff like that is pretty easy, but just to me, I would try to do something that would break up the variety a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, jokes aside, I think Jay's got a point that most of the events so far have been really heavily focused around combat, and I think mixing it up and kind of
Well, it
getting
is a combat game.
Well, you know what I mean. It's typically like kills or whatnot. So I think it'd be kind of good to have focus on other aspects of the game that aren't just killing.
Or now here's the other option. Because I know that you guys have done some initial work and gotten some good stuff in terms of increasing like LP payouts. What if you ran like a faction event where your participation? So imagine like an SP event, but it's more like an LP event, and it's all about X number of matches won per won or lost. It's like matches played, and then you get a bonus for matches won in terms of like by faction. But you do it, but you got to run the numbers in such a way that like if you want to play for Caldari, then over the course of that week or that weekend or whatever that faction warfare push is, that if you want to hit the goals for whatever the big bonuses are, you're really going to be driven to really picking like one, maybe 2 different factions to play for the entire week. And it's got to be structured in such a way that you can't like if it's only about winning, then like if you're just if you're losing every match, everybody's gonna pile on the one side, the one faction warfare side. But I think that would be kind of cool if there's a way to structure maybe a faction warfare event where it was more about LP bonuses, which I think would be kind of an interesting way to reinvigorate that.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned myself that the want for a faction warfare based event now that we've had all the improvements made to the payout there.
Yeah, because I like that the faction warfare in Dust is a little more flexible in terms of who you can fight for than it is in Eve. But at the same time, I think there's not enough incentive to actually remain loyal to a particular faction. So I think, like Jay said, if you have a system set up where it encourages you to fight for just one or two, maybe for the event, I think that'd be kind of cool. Because again, I wish you were more encouraged to actually stick with one rather than whatever you feel like for the time.
Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, since we're still kind of on the million clone event here, what are you guys gonna spend your SP on? Your 3 million SP or whatever you're gonna end up with?
I haven't really decided yet.
Yeah, I don't know. That's actually harder to figure out. That's harder to determine than it was to earn the SP.
Yeah, I'm a little torn myself. I might go into Minmatar Commando. I'm not sure yet. I already got the Glente Commando maxed out, but the Swarm combo would be pretty fun. So I'm looking at that, but I'm not quite sure yet either myself.
At my point, I may be topping off like high proficiencies, and I think there's a couple of the sensor skills that I don't have level 5 on yet, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I might actually buy Systems Hacking 5. I've been putting it off for way too long.
Oh,
I
you
know,
don't have
I
Systems
know.
Hacking 5 yet? For shame!
I've had it at 4 since like day one, since we had the.
It's
the
such a
respec.
fantastic skill.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
I
find
hear you.
Juro and tell on you.
I'm a tanker, dude. He doesn't give a shit.
No, no, but Jesus Christ, you've been playing since Dust was like pre-alpha. It's like, come
Pretty
on.
much.
No, it's actually pretty interesting. I don't know. I was actually leaning towards what towards Zell's idea, because I've sort of recently been playing a little bit more heavy and like really maybe topping up the HMG, or maybe hold like a million and a quarter, million and a half, and put it all into forge guns or something like that. That was kind of my thought, was basically to round out the heavy roll a little bit better in terms of the weapon skills. Or that was my option number one. My option number two is actually to continue to pile some SP into light turrets, because I'm enjoying that quite a bit. Like I have very little SP into vehicles, period, other than a little bit into labs. But I have been getting some good utility out of putting the SP into the light turrets themselves, because that's pretty. There's a lot of utility to that, because I can always hop into somebody's dropship with the right turret, or I kit my labs out to fit it around the turret skills I've got. So those are kind of my two options.
I still only use labs for one thing. Point A to point B.
I tell you, if you want to work on a very different style of gameplay, like don't treat the lav as a throwaway plastic taxi. Actually trick it out, get some modules, put some SP into it, and try to, you can like solo or pair up in it. And I tell you what, you can. Shit's deadly if you really know what you're doing. There's a couple of guys out there that are extraordinarily good at solo laving, and they're very, very proficient. It's an interesting game style, and I think that if people would actually put SP into labs and the modules around labs, they can be a pretty wicked tool on the battlefield. To be honest with you, the number one hindrance to a lav is the fact you can't lock the thing.
The skills that you need for operating a lab in that manner are very similar to operating assault dropship, and I mean the amount of mobility that you get with a dropship, the amount of the fact that you don't have to worry about someone stealing your dropship because you're up in the air and those people are down on the ground, it makes it where being in a lab is not as attractive as an option.
No, but I think you gain some flexibility and some different tactical options. Like I said, there's a few guys out there that are really, really good at it, and it really depends on the style of gameplay that you want to work on. There's a couple of players I've met, like they can solo, or they put one buddy in the truck with them, and they can effectively hold down multiple outside points. Just go screaming across the map at like Mach 2, and they're blazing away with the turret when they pull up, and they're usually quite good with that turret too. they're in a tanked out heavy suit, jump out, smash some people right there on the point, hack it with their hacking skill to 5. I'm looking at your name on my screen now, Pokey. And then then they hop back in, and then they tear ass over to another point and rinse and repeat. They're not going to hold anything, but they're very effective at sort of like smash and grab sort of point flips, which is a great way to hold down like secondary objectives on a map.
Yeah, I think also if we could perhaps bring back the logistics LAV as an actual true support platform, that would be amazing in terms of modifying the dynamic of the game. I think that while we had them before, they weren't actually used as support vehicles, but I think they gave labs more of a actual role than they have now. So I think if we could bring that back and maybe make it more of a support and less of a impossible to kill death taxi, that'd be pretty legit too. So maybe down the line, you guys should definitely push for that in the CPM.
Well, if you could return not just the Logi Lab, but as many of the old vehicles that were taken out, that would be, I think you'd make a very large amount of people happy, and also that would go and spice up vehicle combat. If you had the Enforcers and the Marauders back, Logi dropships, Scout LAVs, and such.
Yeah, I think as long as they don't just drop them back in as they were, because I think that while the variants were awesome, they didn't really perform the way they should have in terms of actually fulfilling the roles they were supposedly assigned to. So I think we can actually take some time to rework them and really make them what they're supposed to be and then get them back in the game. It's a lot of work, but like you said, I think that would be very appreciative of the community. I think it would actually add quite a bit to vehicle combat, which is admittedly pretty stale right now.
And that's definitely a hot fixable thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're just modifying stats and slots and whatnot, and maybe tweaking some existing behaviors. I mean, I would really love if you could actually get the rep tool on the Logi LAV to actually perform in a manner that was a lot easier than it was before, because locking on with the camera before was a real pain in the ass. So I again don't know the technical limitations of some of that, but I think that if you could actually pull some of the magic you guys have been, I was looking at Logi Bro here. I think that'd be pretty awesome because I've always wanted to play that vehicle support role, and I really have never had the ability to because the logistics ship that really had logistics capabilities was that Logi LAV, and it was very difficult to use and not very effective in terms of actual viability on the battlefield.
And on the same note, a lot of modules that, and this is something I'm not quite sure about, if it's just a pipe dream or if it's something that could be hot fixable. If you could return things like heat sinks, active damage mods are still in it, passive damage mods, other things that are a little bit different, spool up mods, remote reps, remote shield not shield extenders, transporters.
Yeah, transporter.
Oh, yeah. It's total, like a total free cop on you here. But one of the things I always wish that they had incorporated into Dust was capacitor, like in terms of particularly the vehicles, because we use a lot of cooldowns and stuff like that. It's probably just the Eve dude in me coming out, but that was always something I thought would be an interesting mechanic.
Well,
do you like your idea about shield transporters?
You know me. I think that the whatever we did for vehicles in Dust was not workable, and I think that they need to be completely redesigned for any future game.
Let me ask you this now. I hate the whole cooldown duration, the way it works, at least for vehicles. I don't like that. You pop your thing for a couple seconds, and then if you want to turn it off, you got to wait the full duration to get it back. So I mean, it kind of goes along the lines that we talked about last week with the large missile turrets. That the full cooldown for a partial use is kind of a pain in the ass. So curious, can you make vehicle active modules perform more like, say, like a cloak works, in that once you turn it on, it starts consuming its energy, and then when you turn it off, it recharges at a certain rate, opposed to having the full cooldown duration that we currently have?
As a hotfix?
Yeah,
I don't know. I have no idea. You would have to ask someone who knows things.
Well, you should ask them your CPM.
Yeah, maybe write it up.
I kind of do actually like that though. That's a Pokey. You just found like a really good example of how a capacitor-like system would actually probably look in Dust. I kind of like that.
It's effectively a capacitor for each module. It's got its own little pool of energy, which decreases and recharges over time. But it's a little less complicated than the Eve capacitor system. But I think it gets the job done in terms of actually performing in a way that is a little more dynamic and less static in a duration cooldown system.
I think that one of the things that I've always really wanted to see was active modules on suits. We've got them in the vehicles, and I'm a huge fan of, like you had a Tech 2 tank, like you had a Marauder, and you could actually fit some equivalent to a Bastion module, or like on a heavy, you have some sort of an equivalent module, like a hardener, that you could pop in it, and for 7 to 10 seconds, you're pretty untouchable, short of like a main gun round from a tank. I always thought that would be, but have like an incredibly long cooldown time, something like that. I always thought that would be a pretty interesting way of working it. And some of the different modules that we run that are essentially they're all passive bonuses, things like damage modifiers and stuff like that. Damage modifiers in Dust are one of those things that I really wish you could either make active, or there was some kind of different component to just slapping them in a high slot and boogieing with them. But I think that's one of those interesting things that, in terms of what you could explore, like what you could do with the hot fixes, if it was something that you could change in terms of the background of the module itself to make it work slightly differently. That's probably just on the other side of doable, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a matter of like I've said before, what can we do now to get the maximum benefit for the least amount of work. And once you hammer that out, you can kind of move into stuff that's a little more effort intensive, but you get kind of a bigger bang for your buck in that regard. So I think further down the line, it's definitely worth exploring some more advanced concepts like that.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. I think that would be a pretty cool. Like I said, I think that'd be a pretty cool thing. Let's see what other stuff that we got out here that we can kick around.
Team balancing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was on my list. Hey, actually, Sarai, could you talk a little bit about how they came about doing that and sort of what the effect has been?
Well, I mean, Rattati had posted up that thread, and I didn't really hear anything about it before he had posted the matchmaking feedback thread. But they went at it, and the thread feedback was there, and there were beautiful graphs and charts, and he rolled that out like a day before he announced it this week. Everybody has been incredibly positive about it. It isn't. The big thing is you're still pulling the exact same 32 people that would be in the match either way. The only thing that's affected, and so the selecting the 32 people is what affects the queue time, and so that actually shouldn't really have changed. But the big thing is the way it's balancing the teams among those 32 people for a match is very different, and it seems to be immensely better. I was playing, this weekend and getting all my matches in, and I was doing ambush. But ambush is usually a horribly balanced game mode that it goes one way or the other. It's usually just one side farming the other team. I had the first match I played went down to like 7 and 7 clones at one point left on each side, so really balanced, really well done. I haven't had a single table flipping match this weekend where I just wanted to just which that's a big thing, because I'll be playing Dust and there'll be a point where I'm just like, this is ridiculous, and I'll just have to step away, and I don't have that with the new matchmaking. So,
well, I'm just curious. What when you say they're like it pulls the same 32 people, but it sounds like it how it selects like what side they're going on.
Yeah.
Is there's something involved in that? Do you know what do they look at, like SP, KDR? What's the what does it
I
select
would
off
go
of?
back and look into that thread, but it's got there's this like this mu value that's used for rating players, and it's not a user visible statistic. I'm not sure exactly what it's based on. I think they went a little bit more into it in the thread, and I'd have to go look. But
It's actually pretty cool stuff if you really kind of dig into how they checked the different correlations between win losses and how that correlates to SP amounts and levels and KDR and whatnot. It's pretty nerdy stuff, but if you're kind of into that, it is pretty interesting in how they broke it all down. It's pretty well thought out.
yeah, and I mean, the big thing there was that the existing system, if I remember correctly, the primary issue was that it tended to put everyone very close together. Whereas this system is a little bit more spread out, so it's easier for the system to discern who should be on which side.
Well, I guess okay. So my question is, it's obviously not breaking up squads, right? It's just
No.
it does some sort of calculation, like on the individuals, and then it figures out your squad equals X score, and then it drops you on one side or the other.
Yeah, it applies a squad multiplier as well, because there's obviously an advantage to working in a squad. So by being in a squad, it actually raises the overall mu value for that group a little bit higher than the sum of the players.
Has this killed the Q-Sync then?
No, this is, as far as I know, I think this is pubs only. If I remember correctly. But I'm not sure.
I'll be honest with you.
From my understanding, and I don't think it would kill. It couldn't kill FAC4 Q syncing because you select a specific side on that.
Yes, no, I'm tracking
so this would definitely be pubs because it's taking your 32 people that are going to be in a match and deciding which side to put them on.
It just struck me that and
you
there's been a lot of
can't
debate about
pubs
it
anymore, which you never should have been able to. So
well, yeah, okay, sure, all right, I'll buy that. I don't know that I agree with it, but I'll buy it for the sake of discussion. But I think here's what I tell you. I think that if they make it impossible to Q-Sync in pubs, that's fine. But what they need to do is then make it easier for me to bring a whole team in for faction warfare. And if you did that, everybody keeps saying faction warfare is going to be horribly imbalanced. I actually think you're going to see a lot more really really good faction warfare matches that way. Because you're going to see squads from across multiple corps syncing. It's not going to be guys just inside one corp. You're treating it like a PC. I think you're going to see alliances actually much more active again if you generated that sort of. If you made the divide that much sharper between pubs and faction warfare, I think that would actually be a healthy thing.
Yeah, I could see that. And another point in that, of course, is my personal stick to shake is that faction warfare is okay for it to be harder and incentivize people to work harder at it because it should reward better than pubs.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely legit. Now I'm curious. I mean, I know we've gotten the triple LP bump, which is good, but frankly, is a heck of a lot better than it was. But it's still pretty thin sauce there in terms of the outs. Have you guys had any engagements about potentially looking into that further?
I've mentioned it a few times. Yeah, I would like to see them raise it higher. The payout. I want to see more things in the LP store. And that's one of those things. More things in the LP stores is not a difficult thing for them to do. It's just a really time-consuming thing for them to do. So, I'm not sure if they mentioned adding FACWAR stuff on the Delta narrative. I think it was on there.
I thought when they first released it, there was discussion about that on one of the sort of blue tagged posts.
Yeah, I think it was on the narrative. But whether or not it makes it is whether or not they had time, because it's such a big time consuming thing to do that is prioritized between fixing the game balance or adding things or whatever.
Yeah, it's time consuming, like you said, but I think it's also really important to get people more interested in Fact War because, I mean, for me, a lot of the reason I'm not as interested as I would like to be is that I can't get the suits that I use from Fact War. So, that would definitely
Right.
broaden the range of people that would want to play it because they could actually get what they're going there for.
Yeah. Now, I do have a question. This is something that you hear SMB talk about a lot. The overall cost of doing business in Dust, like either in terms of payouts or the actual cost of things in the store, do you foresee them at some point like balancing that like with the same level of focus that they've balanced like in gameplay activity?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely would like to see more payout across the board, but I do want to see particularly a higher incentive to Fact War. So the point would be that if pubs also need a raise, I think both need a proportional raise. Because I think that should be used as part of a way to kind of encourage people to gate off to their ability level. But yeah, I mean, one of the big things is that if you have a very heavy incentive to be very conservative in your spending, you're going to be less aggressive.
Yeah,
And
I mean it's a driver.
Right. More money means more things to shoot people with.
Yeah, I mean, it also strikes me that, well, there's two things I think you have to work it in two parallel tracks. One is, you got to actually work on the payouts, which we've talked about. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of, incentivizing Fact War and making it more advantageous to stay with like one faction. Like I'm hugely in favor of that. Like I actually think you should get a better bonus to your standings than you get now, and you should also get a much deeper hit when you fight like cross faction. So that's one thing is actually incentivizing the payouts. But I'll be honest with you, and like I said, I'm solidly in my boys Cross and SMB's camp on this. The cost of doing business as like a logi is pretty expensive. I think it's more along the lines of understanding what the relative cost per role is and how that works when you start laying out high end suits. It's pretty expensive. So that's one of those things that I would like them to look at is literally the cost of things in the store and even that out a little bit maybe by role, and then actually look at the payouts and further highlight the difference. And I like your idea, Sarai, is that you incentivize faction warfare through payouts. But I also think we should take a page out of Eve's book and maybe highlight that faction choice matters at least more than it does now. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And giving people a reason to play in a particular faction should help balance out the faction play as well, which a lot of times people pick their faction based on right now which one's going to get them the easiest battle.
Yeah, and this is, by the way, is to your point about what's in the LP store. A lot of people base that on, wow, I really need rep tools, so I don't care what faction I am, I'm going to play Minmatar. I don't care what I don't care what suit I'm running or what else I'm doing, but in order to get that one tool, I need to go on to, I need to jump these faction warfare matches. I don't think that's a great idea where it's that limiting. I think there's got to be some evening out of things.
I think there should be a strong encouragement to use your faction's gear, but in the case of like equipment, that needs to be universally available.
If the loyalty point store could put like one variant, just for each faction to have one variant of an item, like there to be for Kaldari, sure, you have a full line of nanite injectors and you have a full line of what's it called, nanohives. Yeah, but you can also get a special uplink. You can also get a
just get one.
Yeah,
one. You have to have at least something that gives you an option.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think you should be offering rail rifles on the Minmatar store, but when it comes to equipment, I think you have to have the full flexibility there.
Yeah, and well, I can kind of buy that because a lot of the particularly the assault suits and the commando suits, a lot of those bonuses are based around suit tags. So that totally makes sense to me. But it's when you get into it's the equipment and the modules
Right.
that you really have to pay attention to because that's where the bulk of your options lie, and that's where I mean it just I actually like Killer's idea where you can access everything, but obviously the things that are specific to your faction are you have the most robust suite or options in the LP store, and that's I think that's a very legit way to do it. I like that. I kind of like that idea actually.
I mean, like in Eve, you have the full selection of items, but you also have, like, if you're going for Minotaur, you can get a bunch of things for projectiles, but you can get a decent amount of things for missiles, but you can also get a little bit for drones. You can get a little bit for energy turrets for hybrids, but you're not necessarily going to get great implants for those.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there in terms of, you know what would be really cool? I'll throw this one on you. All right, so do you remember when they had those like $9 packs of several months or 4, 5, 6 months ago it was like the State Protectorate pack. It was the the Republic so and so pack.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Remember that? And you got like a full line of suits, or you got like 100 of advanced and proto like assault logi and I mean you had it was a pretty good pack actually. What I would like them to do is almost like how in Eve you've got like the Navy issue suit or the like if you brought that pack back, like literally just as though it was toned up and you tweak the stats on it a little bit where it was almost like like the Navy issue stuff, where it was a little bit higher end or a little bit slightly different bonus. I think that would be a pretty cool way of doing it as well, and probably wouldn't be that hard to do, frankly. I mean, Zell, do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, you have to you can ask about it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the best answer then. You see if we can explore that a little bit. But I think that you've got like a ready-made source inside the game already that you could do that with, and then, like I said, it's just tweaking the numbers in the database at that point.
Yeah, I think whatever can really add some more depth to it is going to be great. I think Fact War is one of the parts of DOS that's actually done fairly well to a large extent. So I'd like to really see them kind of hammer that out and really push for it and make it the best it possibly can be, because it is good stuff and it really is a nice taste of the Eve world and the whole experience.
I think it was the best system that we've had in the game. It just hasn't really, the rewards incentive wasn't there, so there wasn't a good enough reason to play it.
Yeah, and that's improving. I think really fleshing out the store and making it a little more useful and attractive to a wider range of people is also going to go a long way in helping that. So, yeah, like Jay said, I think encouraging a little bit more loyalty without hindering it completely, and giving people more options is going to go a long way in making it even better.
Cool. All right. Let's see. What are the things we had to kick around on this? Let's see. I think we covered quite a bit actually.
We can go over each of our fit of the week.
Oh yeah, fit of the week. Outstanding. All right. Well, do you want to lead us off, Pokey?
Yeah, I'll start off. One thing I kind of wanted to try, I thought it'd be kind of interesting with the Million Clone event, since it's going to be mostly ambushed. I kind of wanted to see what it would be like. Is you see a lot of talk in the forums of people saying the idea of the sidearm only logi, and I've always stated very fervently that I think that maybe giving a logi a sidearm only is going to really hinder their ability to be support role. But I wanted to give it a shot, so all week long I've been running Minotaur logi in particular with only sidearms to see what it's like, and it's a real pain in the ass. I gotta say, I feel really hindered personally. I don't think it works really well at all. So I guess my fit has just been again, I keep it cheap. It's just a Sever Logi suit, 2 shield extenders, an armor plate, and an armor repper, and then a locust grenade, SMG mostly, locust grenade, injector, nanohive, and a repair tool. And just kind of trying that out with different sidearms and whatnot to see what life as a sidearm only Logi would be like. And I gotta say, it's a pain in the ass. So I'm not a fan. I hope we never go that direction.
I can totally see that. Let's see. Killer, what do you got for your fit of the week?
Goodness, it's been a while since I've even looked at my fits. Sorry, I'm trying to think. Used a just normal Galente Scout with 4. Actually, no, I tried out with a 4 reps in the lows, and then I think precision in my high. It's either precision or melee mods, and then just shotgun, submachine gun, and normal stuff, cloak, etc. Not just, well, didn't really have anything fancy.
Okay. I used this because I basically did a blitz of ambushes to get through the Million Clone Challenge, and like I've only been able to play maybe a total of 2 hours this week, frankly, for a reason I'll explain here in a little bit. But I actually wanted to take a page out of a couple other people's book on this one. So I played a lot of heavy. I used the heavy suit, my Cal Heavy, all the way through, basically the same suit I talked about last week. Then I started just kind of fooling around. So what I did is I had a lot of like onesies and twosies and threesies of modules and stuff. You got like a gazillion of these at this point in the game, like laying around in your hangar. So I put together an assault suit, a Cal assault suit with like dual SMGs. Had a lot of fun with that. So basically, I was running a regen-based Cal assault. Had let's see, Energizer, Recharger, 2 complex regulators. As that's sort of the baseline for the active tank. And I think I don't think I put a Kincat on it, or I don't think I put or a green bottle, but I thought I put like some kind of either the speed or the endurance when I had a bunch of them left over. But threw those on, and I basically ran like an Ishcon Assault SMG and a MagSec, and I would swap them back and forth. And I had I've got a ton of SMGs laying around, so I was mixing and matching with breaches and other stuff like that, and I actually had a lot of fun with that. So dual SMGs on a regen, like an active tank, the Cal assault suit. So that was my fit of the week. Zell, what do you got?
I've been playing with my assault rifle and rail rifle this weekend. So on a Caldari assault suit, mostly either shield extenders or damage mods in the highs, and nothing but fitting modules in the lows. Generally, I need a little bit of a CPU and power grid boost.
What kind of rail are you running?
I think it's the standard advanced tier 1.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't know if you were running like the base model or the assault.
Base model.
Oh, okay. All right, I got you.
Actually, just out of curiosity, I don't know much about the rail rifles. What advantages do you feel that the assault gives over the standard rail rifle?
When you're talking about close quarters, anything, the rail rifle's a joke. If anyone gets within 15 meters of me, it's done. Assault rifle is if you're dealing.
He means done, not in a good way, right?
Yeah. No, if you're you only want to be using the rail rifle if you're dealing with people at range.
Well, I was speaking more in terms of the rail rifle versus the assault rail rifle, the variant.
Oh, okay.
It's about DPS application. That what they've
all right. I
what
thought
they've
you was
done
asking
is
about my assault rifle versus my rail rifle.
Sorry.
No,
Very confusing.
What they've done is essentially a really good, like if you take the model that Rattati's using to sort of make a very linear and hard and fast line with DPS and in range. He did exactly what he's wanted to achieve, and what a fair amount of the community frankly has asked for. So the rail rifle has the lowest level of DPS, like the base rail rifle, in the longest range. That's no secret. The problem becomes with the base rail rifle. It is it can be surprisingly hard to actually deliver the DPS and that's the one beef I have with the model that they're using is they don't account for enough other factors with the weapons. Because the DPS on paper doesn't mean that you can put that DPS on a target. And it doesn't account for enough tactical scenarios. So, and that's what, and I think you heard like me and Ghost talking about is like the actual, like the straight up proto Calichiota rail rifle. That thing is now become a fairly niche weapon. It's not something you want to run around in, particularly if you're in a serious match, unless you're in a very specific spot or you're guarding a certain approach or you're on a certain point in some maps. Now the assault rail rifle. Now I use the assault rail rifle probably 75% of the time. You know, at least when I'm not using like a heavy. That one is you can actually apply more DPS. You trade a little bit of range and you lose the scope, which is actually quite good on the rail rifle. But you have a little higher rate of fire. The charge mechanic is still the same, and actually what I would tell you is, and this is just my gut, you know, for me personally, is I would rather have kept the DPS or maybe shaved the DPS on a little bit, but give me almost no charge time on the assault rail rifle. Bring it down noticeably, because the issue is it's in close quarters. You can still really be at a disadvantage. Like if somebody pops out with an ACR or an SMG or dare to say a shotgun.
I think that's the point, to be very disadvantaged in close range.
No, yeah, I got it. But here's the I'm with you. But the other point is that the variance of the rifles should be able to at least mitigate or negate a lot more of those disadvantages if you go that way. They get closer in the realm of trade-offs, and that's the thing that we're never going to see 4 variants of rifles right now for all the racial lines like you have for the Galente line. But the problem you get when you start working the numbers, I'm a big fan of, like, you should make the difference in the weapons matter. But when they matter that much that you can become totally gimped in the middle of a game because of it is a little shaky. I mean, in EVE it makes more sense because you can control time and space in that game a lot better. In a first-person shooter, it's way more dynamic because if you think about it, if you're telling somebody you should not use this weapon in close quarters, yet the point of the game is to close to a panel and secure the panel, it's problematic.
Well, there's a standing point that not everybody playing the game should expect to be the one hacking. They can be open, clearing the way for others too.
Yeah, but like you said before,
I'm totally with you on that.
It's like you said before, though, that it's you also have to understand that what percentage of engagements actually happen at a point in which that range is going to be advantageous versus more of a middle range weapon. So I mean, there is definitely a trade off in terms of map design and how that's going to actually work.
I've been finding
you can't give up
more times than not. I prefer to have my rail rifle.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, not everyone may agree, but I mean, I can see if your playstyle is hanging back and you aren't as much into the fight. I can see that. You just don't want to get to a point where.
Usually, it's just because unless you're on a socket, you're probably going to be dealing with people. You're going to be, if you're trying to close the range, you're going to die before you get into good assault rifle range.
Right. I'm not saying that it's necessarily wrong right now. I'm just saying that you don't want to make a weapon that's gimped so much to gain range beyond what's actually useful. Is what I'm really getting at.
Like for example, the if you take the rails, like the assault and the base rail rifle, I'm totally sold that you can go with like lowest DPS and longest range. I will buy that model with the clear caveat that you need to look at the other mechanics of the rifle. So, for example, the rail rifle has the highest recoil, and it's got a charge mechanic. So, delivering the lowest end of the DPS is harder, and that's something that you have to take that into account. In theory, you would want to make it easier to deliver the lowest level of DPS, and you would have a much higher recoil. You would swap the recoil from the assault rifle and the rail rifle, if you think about it that way. That's what they should do. And then you can play into the dispersion game and all that other jazz. But it's something that's at that level of DPS delivery. You need to be able to very consistently and regularly deal its peak DPS, which is already going to be substantially lower than that close quarters weapons DPS.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point there, because when you make something an assault variant, you're effectively saying, I'm pushing the range down and raising the DPS up a little bit, because that's what variants are, is they kind of push the weapon towards a certain range and DPS level. So I think it's a pretty valid point that when you do that, you need to make sure you're compensating for what's actually happening within the weapon and not just applying a variation on how it fires from, bumping up the DPS or bumping up the fire rate from a lower fire rate and taking out the scope.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, and trust me, I like the day the rail rifle came out, I had a little over, like, right at 2.6 million SP saved up for it, and I dropped it all on the rail rifle the day it came out. Good or bad, I was going to take it all. What I would tell you is that because I used the assault rail rifle mostly, what I really should have done was sunk all that SP into combat rifles, because that's a far more versatile weapon, and you can. And again, I will say it till the day is long, is that the vast majority of engagements are at a place where everybody in that engagement can affect the other player with their weapon. So the percentage of times that you can truly be in a serious position with that rail rifle to do damage and other people can't get to you or can't hurt you is relatively low. I'm not saying it's like that all the time, but it's relatively low. So,
well, it's halfway between the sniper rifle.
Yeah, and again, to my point is that right now the way the rail rifles are set up, it's a somewhat effective TAC AR, but the TAC AR you can actually use in close quarters better, and it is clearly outclassed by the combat rifle and the breach AR. That's or even the burst AR to a degree. So that's sort of my comment. It's not about just DPS. It's literally just about mechanics and game and the ability to deliver lethal rounds.
Yeah, because you want to make the weapons feel different from one another, but they can't differ. They can't differ so much that they get too niche. And I think it's kind of what you're hitting at, is that you don't want to make it so it's so extreme that you're gimped in almost every other aspect of the games. Like we said before, the combat rifle does kind of land in the middle of everything, and that makes it very flexible, where the rail rifle is actually probably the most extreme of all the rifles in that it's very limited in certain ranges and uses, where the combat rifle is not. It's pretty effective in almost any situation.
Well, that's similar to how the laser rifle is, where you have that sweet spot. You go below the sweet spot, you're not going to do anything. You go above it, you're not going to do anything. But if you get in there, people are going to melt.
Yeah, no, I think that's, and the laser rifle does, like a good laser rifle user is frankly more valuable than a good rail rifle user a lot of times, based on the relative usage for both those weapons.
Well, and that's kind of the difference I see between what I would consider like a general use weapon, like an assault rifle, versus a specialty weapon, like a laser rifle or a shotgun. The specialty weapons are extremely focused on a very particular range and purpose, where I think the assault rifles in general need to be a little more flexible in what they're doing. So I think in that regard, it works well. It's just a matter of making sure you get that balance between versatility and specialization.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a fair point. It's a little bit, maybe I'm not saying it is, but maybe it has become a little bit too specialized. And the other thing, a lot of guys will tell me, he's like, well, yeah, but the AR, like the plasma rifle, it's short range, so it's got the opposite disadvantages. The issue with that is you can overcome those disadvantages because of the variance of the rifle much easier than you can with the rail rifle setup. And so, that being said, like I said, I make no bones about it. I've got a lot of SP invested in the in rail rifles, but knowing what I know now, I might very well have put it all into combat rifles, just because of the versatility that I can use those, that weapon system in just a much longer a much wider degree of tactical situations. And frankly, the assault rail rifle the assault combat rifle is pretty goddamn legit in close quarters, and the standard combat rifle out to mid to long range is incredibly effective. It's got a good aim down sight system, and you can deliver some quality DPS. And it's a very easy to use weapon. It's fairly accurate. You don't have to fuck with the charge time. Everybody beefs about, like, well, yeah, but you can't just spam the trigger anymore. Well, sure, but you can still deliver a lot of burst damage real quick. So, like I said, this is coming from a guy who's like I think I'm all fives but one category. I got like one level 4 left in the rail rifle, so I'm sunk in as far as I can go. And what I would say is, knowing what I know now and how things have balanced out, I would have picked a combat rifle just because it's so much more useful.
I guess. I mean, I definitely. I know I mentioned somewhere in internal discussions that I think the rail rifle had been kicked in the head enough times and that they could stop nerfing it.
Yeah, one of the things that I would like to see them do is basically lay out sort of like an increment system. Like, hey, here's increment 1, and we're going to look kind of like what they did with the rifle data this time. I'm kind of glad that they're going back and relooking at that data, but frankly, I'm just because we have no test server. I think I would be overly sensitive of massive changes. I would do incremental changes with a clear eye of like, okay, we're going to change it to A, and we're going to look for the following pieces of data to see if we're in the groove that we want to be, and we are prepared to go to A plus or A plus plus in terms of either a buff or a nerf. And when like when they lay out the idea for suit weapon, something like a major system in the game, something like that. So that's, like I said, that's one thing I would like to see them do, is take more advantage of the hot fix tempo, and perhaps be very deliberate about the increments that they want to use. And I would like to, frankly, to really open up the to other mechanics other than just DPS and range. Okay, so I think we've been going at it for almost an hour, guys. We got a couple guys who's got to bail out here in a minute, so we're gonna, unless anybody's got anything pressing, we'll go ahead and kind of bring this one to a close and start some shout outs in a second. You guys okay with that?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds wonderful.
Cool. Killer, you were our guest tonight, so how about you lead us off with shout outs?
Shout out to everyone in Top Men. Even though I haven't been there, shout out to everyone who's in Mullen and helped me with getting some Eve stuff set up. Shout out to the guys in Hunan and Munin. And I think that's about it.
Okay, cool. And let's see, Sarazel.
I'm gonna give my shout out to Killer for coming on the show. So we had a guest, and a shout out to Ratati and Lajibur again for everything they do, which makes our lives more wonderful.
All right, Pokey.
Shout out to my corporation, OSG. Let you all know that I did the unspeakable and actually lowered taxes for the corp, and I lowered them to 0%. So as Jay keels over his heart attack from shock, just letting you guys know.
I'm fairly confident that means you're going to raise them to something ungodly at some point.
Yeah, it's just for the event. I'm putting it up to like 35% after this, so enjoy it while you can.
Well, time to go and get on my OSG alt.
You're like the goons. Goons have a really high tax rate, I think.
For all the nefarious things I do behind the scenes, didn't you know?
I have seen some corps in Eve with a ridiculously high tax rate, and they're very active corps, and it's a little surprising. So
it's called communism.
No, you laugh. It's the Russians. I'm dead serious. Like I operated for until very recently, up around Blackrise and out towards the north side of the Kaldari area. That's where the Russian enclave is, dude. Like they've got corps up there with like 70% tax rate. Like
I mean, it depends on what the corp does.
No, I mean these are like active, like gankers.
Well, no, but I mean, it depends on what the corp does. Like, if you're running a
It's
industry
communism.
corp,
They may be
Yeah.
providing you everything in exchange.
communism, yeah. It could be like a mining corp, because if you don't have a lot of people who do PvE and missions, then
No,
it's not really much
like
that
these
you
guys
can.
that I'm thinking of, they are the security squad. So I think they're like the Russian Spetsnaz commandos that now have no job, and their job is to troll people in Eve for rubles. So I like they have like a 70% tax rate, and they sit there on every gate in lowsec and nullsec that goes into the Russians' territory in like super tank gnosis and vagabonds, just waiting on some poor scrub to go in there to try to run a mission, and then they just shake him down like you would not believe.
It's like, yeah, there's a lot of people who just sit on fucking gates. Like there's a lot of people who like to sit on gates. Gets annoying.
Well, it happens.
That's true.
Let's
Welcome
see.
to
So, go ahead, Pookie.
I was just saying, welcome to New Eden. That's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're 100% spot on with that. So, shout outs for me. I've got one major shout out. It'll be to my new corp in Eve. I'm flying with Agony Unleashed now, and I really, really top shelf group of guys. Probably the best small gang PvP outfit that I've seen like ever. And you definitely, I'm definitely having to like work like hell just to keep up with them. So big shout outs to the guys in Agony Unleashed for taking me on, and I really appreciate that. You, like I said, great group of dudes, and we'll be seeing you at a yellow box near you at some point, I'm sure. So with that, guys, I think we're going to bring episode 21 to a close, and we really appreciate everybody. All the support we get. We say that every week, but we're very serious. We do get a lot of feedback here and there. Either on Twitter, occasionally email, in game quite a bit. So I do appreciate that a lot, and I know that Sarai and Pokey do as well. So, guys, we will see you, and great job with the Million Clone Challenge. Enjoy the free SP. Hope you skill into something new you've never done before with it, and keep playing a little bit longer. So with that, we'll see you guys next week.